everyone. I'm Garrett Tesla, founder of the Squad Room, where we help you transform your leadership, create more resilience, and generate more balance in your life. I started the Squad Room because I was searching for those answers for myself. And as I dug deep into personal development and dealing with the stress of my job as a cop, I quickly realized that I was not alone. So the Squad Room is here to help you become the person you want to be. And we give you access to some of the best experts in the world to help you do that. If you're new to the show, thanks for being here. And don't forget to follow or subscribe to the show so that you don't miss any of this valuable information that literally could change your life. We all need coaches and mentors in our lives, and we have literally hundreds of hours of free content on this show and at thesquadroom.net on growing your leadership, raising your emotional awareness, mastering stress, arresting anger, and creating more balance in your life. Now, let's get to today's episode so you can implement some of these lessons into your life. And trust me, many of these lessons are hard-won. There are blood, sweat, and probably a few tears behind what we share on this show. But the whole point is to help you navigate these tough careers during these incredibly challenging times. So listen closely and maybe even take a couple notes so that you can execute on some of the lessons you learned today. I also challenge you to share this message with friends who are committed to personal development like you. It's important that all of us spread some positivity in these difficult times. It's the responsibility of each of us to lead where we can. And you can do that right now by taking these lessons and sharing them with others. Also, make sure to DM me or tag me on Instagram at The Squad Room so I can cheer you on or answer questions. And I'd love it if you wanted to reach out by email to me. It's garrett@thesquadroom.net. Thanks for listening. Now let's begin. Today I wanted to dive into a topic that I really haven't covered before, but has been on my mind a bit recently, especially with my recent being promoted again recently. Earlier this year, and seeing some of the same themes come up. My supervisory experience in my 17 years of law enforcement, I spent a little over almost 10 years of that as a sergeant, and then was promoted earlier this year in 2022, if you're listening currently, promoted in early 2022 to lieutenant. And there are things I recognized when I made sergeant that are consistent with being promoted to lieutenant. And I wanted to talk about the stuff that is not the normal things you hear about with leadership or stepping into your role, where, the things that we all get taught or that we get told, you got to take care of your people or lead from the front or those kinds of things. I wanted to kind of cover the hidden aspects of promotion and some of the secrets, frankly, that people don't tell you about. And I've conferred with others who I trust, who have agreed with most of these, or someone's agreed with all of these at some point, but these are not things that were typically shared openly, and that people in a supervisory position, like a sergeant, a lieutenant, captain, etc., they don't typically express these things. And I've never heard anyone tell me these things in advance. And some of them would have been nice for me to have, just to know. None of them would have changed whether I decided to promote or not necessarily, but it's just it would have been nice to know and understand a bit of the difference. So today I'm going to tackle 15 secrets no one tells you about becoming a leader. And if you listen to the show, you know that I use leader much differently than I use supervisor. And I chose that title specifically using the word leader because, yes, most of these relate to being a supervisor and playing that role, but to really do the job of a supervisor, you also have to be a leader. You supervise a process or a procedure, you lead people, right? Management's something entirely different. You manage a resource, you supervise a process or procedure, but you lead people. And so this could be titled 15 Secrets No One Tells You About Becoming a Supervisor, or 15 Secrets Nobody Tells You About Promoting. However you want to take it, here they are. The first one is, it's lonely. It's really lonely. I'm not complaining, but when you promote, and especially the higher up you go, there are less and less people in the organization who understand your job. Everybody understands the patrol job because that's where everyone starts. Or for the correction side, everyone understands working the floor because that's where everyone starts. But as you move up, there are less and less people who know your job, know the pressures and constraints of your job, know the bureaucracies of your job. And for other reasons that I talk about later on, you begin to get isolated from the quote unquote troops. And that's the dangerous part. Dangerous part is becoming isolated. So you have to work to stay connected, and you have to really create intention with the way that you interact with the people who are quote unquote below you, your subordinates. But if you're having a problem and you're struggling, you don't want to go to the people below you in rank, and you may not want to go above you, may not even want to go side to side. And so it's much different in that dynamic. The minute you promote, it's a bit lonely. So you need to have a strong sense of your own values, your own ethics, your own beliefs, and a strong confidence in your own ability to do the job. All right, so the second one, a simple fact of life, of being a supervisor, is you're going to be the bad guy or the bad woman. You're going to be the bad guy sometimes. You're going to have to tell them things they don't want to hear. You're going to have to shoot down the fun because you now have a different role in the organization. You now have a different paradigm through which you see things. Hopefully you do. And you now have a different set of responsibilities. And I remember as a slick sleeve or as a patrol officer being frustrated by the things that a sergeant might squash or might discipline me on or might counsel me on. And then becoming a sergeant and doing those same things and understanding that in my new role, I see the purpose behind it. And then as a sergeant being frustrated by the things that maybe my lieutenant might have poo-pooed or ideas that he might have squashed. But then becoming a lieutenant and seeing the dynamic there. And it's just part of the job, unfortunately. But you're going to have to be the bad guy. And that's not to say that you have to be mean or you have to be rude or that you have to intentionally shoot down people's ideas. And the last thing we want to do is to just continue doing the work we've always done it. So that's not what I mean by this. But you're going to have, as you go, you're going to have to adhere to the requirements of the rank that you're in order to achieve the objectives of that rank. And oftentimes the goals of the organization don't align directly with, say, what you want to do as a patrol officer. And you're going to have to be the bad guy sometimes and correct that. Number 3, people won't like you. Just simply won't like you because of your rank. They won't like you because they think you're a brown noser. They won't like you because you tested higher than on the testing than they did. They won't like you because they think that you got special treatment because you've got a special hookup or relationship with someone in command. On and on and on. You represent authority within a group that represents authority. And I have found that there's no group on earth that bristles more at being under the thumb of authority than cops, which is hugely ironic and should make anybody chuckle. But any sort of direction or supervision role, people automatically, not everyone, but people automatically are not going to like you just because of the rank you wear. We often complain about people who don't like us because we just because of our uniform. They don't know anything about us personally, but they don't like us because of our uniform. Well, expect that when you put on stripes or bars. And if you work hard, you have a good relationship and you have good connections with people, you'll probably mitigate a lot of that, but there's still going to be people out there that just don't like you because of your rank. Number 4 on the 15 secrets no one tells you about becoming a leader is that the people are the hard part. I remember a conversation when I was about to be promoted. It had been announced. I was about to be promoted to sergeant. It had been announced, but I was in that like kind of purgatory where I hadn't taken the job yet, but it was like a couple weeks out. And a partner stopped me and asked me how I thought I was going to do in the job or how I thought the job would be. And I thought, honestly, at the time, I thought, this is 10 years ago. It's like, oh, I think the job's going to be pretty easy. I mean, we have policy and procedure and we have the law. So, I feel confident on that stuff. We know how to do that. And we have good deputies who are, doing their thing and kind of on autopilot. They're good. I had no idea how wrong I was about that. You're going to spend 80%, 90% of your time on people issues, whether that's underperformers and trying to get them up to speed, whether that's on acknowledging high performers, whether that's on mitigating relationship conflicts with your coworkers, whether that is navigating some of the challenging things that come up with having employees. The people are the hard part. So you really need to invest in your own education as you go and to never stop learning, because when you decide to become a leader, not only do you have to go through all the perishable skills training like Archon, arrested control, firearms, all the things we are required to do by law, but you have to add to that skill set. You have to add the skills of becoming a supervisor and the skills of becoming a leader. You have to take that on yourself. And for the most part, agencies really don't force that on you. You might have to go to a sergeant school or a management school. It's like 2 weeks and you're done. But both leadership and supervision are perishable skills. And if you don't take an active role in your own education, then you're going to be really at a loss when you're dealing with the people, because the people really are the hard part. And check the show notes for this episode for some reading suggestions, especially on this particular one. I dropped some of my favorite books on these kinds of issues when it comes to the people being the hard part. Number 5 on the 15 secrets, you still need to be a good follower. Leadership is really, especially in the middle, is really a dynamic between managing the needs and expectations of your people who are, again, below you, subordinate to you in rank, and managing the expectations and obligations of the people above you, and following the mission of the agency and knowing what the agency's goals are. And hopefully your agency has them and you have an understanding of what the mission is. And if you don't, you need to go ask. But you are not a good leader if you're in the middle of an organization and you are intentionally creating angst and animosity for the people above you in the people below you. Number 6, similar to number 5, number 6 is you can't complain down. Just like I said earlier about it being lonely, you're going to leave people and friends in ranks below you. And you have to be very careful with how you complain and who you complain to. Because, as I'll get to in another top point, people are listening to you and they will take their cues from you. And I've seen it a dozen times, and I've been the problem myself plenty of times, where I catch myself complaining down, and then I start to affect an attitude in the people that work with me that is less than ideal, or even just downright negative. If you need to complain to someone of equal rank, a friend in that equal rank who understands. Complain to your boss if it's something they need to know about, or that you can vent to if you feel comfortable. Complain outside to a spouse or a friend, but do your best not to complain down, and definitely don't like jump ranks to complain down. That should be an absolute no-no. The next one, number 7, is you're not one of the boys anymore. You are not one of the group. You're not out there chasing the bad guys, hopping the fences, kicking the doors. You're not doing that anymore. So it's not going to be very long before you begin to get distanced from the group. And this is something that we all have to challenge ourselves with, right? But we have to be okay with it. At the sergeant level, it's a little different because sergeants are typically still out there, very active, very engaged, running squads, great proactive sergeants out there. But as a sergeant, you'll probably notice that, you aren't getting the invite to dinner or to breakfast as much, or certain people want to stay away from you unless they need your help. We are a very independent kind of personality, and oftentimes we kind of just bristle at the presence of authority. And I remember as a new deputy, like if the lieutenant walked in the room, you found a reason to be busy and get out and go do something, right? Or when I first started, I had a sergeant that you didn't talk to unless you absolutely needed something. And those still exist, and that mentality still exists. And it's just a natural inclination of your employees that they want you around. It's kind of like a parent. They want you around, but they don't want you in their face. So that doesn't mean that you should step back and disengage. What it means is you have to work harder to engage because their natural inclination is going to be distance from you. You're going to find out about weekend barbecues, maybe where you weren't invited, or choir practice or something like that. And that's okay because you're the boss now. And there is a level of discomfort with that, regardless of who you are. And so you're not one of the boys anymore, and that's just okay. Number 8, your attitude is contagious. Similar to number 6, what I said, you can't complain down. Your attitude is contagious. I used to have a position where I worked with all of these patrol shifts in a particular station while I was doing gangs. And I would work with each of them on different nights. And you would see how quickly a squad would take on the personality of the new sergeant that came in. And especially how squads had the personality of a sergeant who'd been around for a long time. And it's because your attitude as the leader is contagious. If you express optimism and positivity and a passion for your people, that is going to be contagious in the right way. If you express negativity and an idea that everything is messed up and that there's no hope in the world, that is also going to be contagious. And imagine the impact that has on morale, on productivity, on their purpose and meaning in life. So your attitude as the leader is incredibly important that you are careful in how you present yourself to the people around you. And again, I am suspect in this myself sometimes, where especially with friends, I am maybe less than dynamic about certain things, or I might gripe, but I try not to do it with people who are out there doing the hard work and who I might have some impact on, who might just walk out the door and be like, man, he's right. If the lieutenant thinks that, then I guess we're all screwed and there's no reason to go out and do any work. Can't do that. If I have an issue with the way things are done, it's my obligation to fix it or to at least suggest some alternatives. And then I know I've done my part. But if I just stomp around angry and negative, I'm going to make an entire station angry and negative. The next secret, one that's just something you got to deal with. They will talk behind your back. They're going to talk about you, good or bad, but they're going to say things about you when you're not there. And they're going to say things about you that are incorrect. They're going to say things about you that are misunderstood or misrepresented, or maybe there's someone out there who wants to spread misinformation. But regardless of your intentions, it's just natural with cops, because it's like high school. People are going to talk about you behind your back. And it's never been a great feeling, but you just have to know that it's happening. And then what you don't want to do is start going around asking people about what they're saying about you or what other people are saying about you. That's none of your business. You can't control what people say about you. So there's no reason for you to spend any time worrying about it. There's no reason for you to spend any time trying to investigate it and trying to prove them wrong. The way you prove them wrong is you show up with your values and your mission set and your sense of purpose. And if that's in alignment, you're going to be just fine. But they are going to talk about you behind your back. Number 10, similar, I touched on this a little bit earlier. You can't stop learning now. You have to be engaged with your own learning process. Leadership and supervision are absolutely perishable skills. But you also can't get lazy with the other stuff. You can't get lazy with search and seizure knowledge or Archon or your firearms. You have to lead from the front. And one of the ways you do that is showing a consistent proficiency and confidence and competence in your work. So you can't stop learning now. Number 11, your position as a leader is tenuous. Trust is your most important commodity as a leader. And it can be blown in a second. And it can take you a long time to get it back. Your leadership position is tenuous. It all is based on trust. And if you show people that you can't be trusted, your cover's blown and you're done. And you will become one of those leaders people talk about behind your back, that people don't like, and it becomes a real challenge to get that back. Early in my career, earlier in my time as a sergeant, one of the mistakes I made was coming in and really making changes too early. I thought I'd given it enough time to maybe make some adjustments or to counsel some people on some of their performance issues, but I was a little overzealous, and I broke a trust that I was building with these people, and it took a long time to get it back. And I don't know if with people I'm talking about, if I ever even got it back at that point. So be mindful of how you talk to people. Be mindful of following up on your obligations. Most importantly, probably the biggest advice I can give on this one is to follow through on your promises. You've got to follow through on your promises. If as a leader you make a promise, you have to commit to making that happen. And don't make promises you can't keep. That's a big one. Don't make promises you can't keep, because that right there is going to blow any sense of trust that your people have in you. And I'll go a step further and suggest too something that I try to be mindful of that I've even recently sort of misstepped on was, depending on the circumstances, don't even tell people about the things you're trying to accomplish for them unless you feel or you're relatively confident you're able to make that happen. Because you set false expectations and you set false hopes. You know, again, the gossip mill, the way it is, if you as this is just an example, but I don't know, if you as a sergeant say that you have found funding to buy everybody new vests, and that you're going to go out and get these new vests, or that you think you found funding but it's not confirmed yet, don't tell them that, because if the funding falls through, or more like a lieutenant squashes it, or a lieutenant takes that money for something else, then it looks bad. And there's nothing, you didn't do anything wrong, but you set an expectation or you set a hope, and then you kind of took it away from them. And it doesn't necessarily show distrust because you didn't promise anything, but it does set you up for being seen as someone who maybe can't follow through. So be careful with that. So number 11 is your position as a leader is tenuous. Number 12 is to keep in mind a subordinate today could be a supervisor tomorrow. This happens all the time. And there's a real balance and challenge in that when you're a supervisor and you have someone who may need some counseling, or you feel like they may need just a reminder, not even counseling like formal counseling, but just like a quick adjustment. And that person then becomes of equal or higher rank than you. And it's happened in my career, and I know it's happened in a bunch of others. And the hope is that you are, again, in alignment with your own mission and values well enough that this shouldn't be a problem. But it is a potential minefield of egos to tiptoe through, especially around promotion time, especially if you and some of your coworkers are testing for the same positions. It's a minefield of egos to tiptoe through to navigate maintaining a positive relationship, but an effective one as the supervisor and as the leader with people who one day may be of rank above you. The next one, number 13, is your job now as the leader, as a supervisor. And I realize I'm beginning to combine those terms, but in this sense, I'm really talking about leaders who are supervisors. But in this job, in your role as a supervisor, your job is now about making others successful. It is no longer about you. And the way that you become successful in the job, and the way that you demonstrate your value to the agency and your worth in your position, is by making other people successful. One of the things I am most proud about in my career is that when I was a sergeant, I couldn't count on my fingers and toes together the deputies that worked with me that had gone on to specialty assignments, had gotten promoted to their own supervisory role, or had gotten some career achievement as a result of being with me. Well, that sounds wrong. I'm not taking credit for their work, but I like to think that I set up an environment where they could succeed and they could pursue their interests, and then that we could showcase their good work to my bosses so that they had opportunities to pursue what they wanted to pursue. My goal at that point in my career was to become a supervisor, become a sergeant. And in that position as a sergeant, my goal then was to turn around and find out how I could make other people successful in their job. And I think I did that well. I definitely ruffled some feathers with other people by promoting my people. I don't mean promoting like officially promoting in rank, but just being a cheerleader for my people, for putting them in for anything they were eligible for in terms of awards or recognitions, making sure that in public they got recognized for their good work, that my bosses knew about the cool things that they were doing. And I got accused of creating a culture, a kind of insulated culture within my team, and I understand that there's a danger in that you can kind of go overboard and create an exclusive culture by leaving out people who aren't the performers. But that really wasn't my intention or my goal there. My goal was to celebrate the work my people were doing. And as a result, people wanted to come and work with me because they saw that other people were being successful on the squad. They were getting promoted. They were getting specialty assignments in narcotics or detectives or vice or gangs or any of those things. And they had opportunities and they wanted to work with like-minded people. So your job as a supervisor is all about making other people successful. The other way to look at that is your job is to train your replacement and to teach your people your replacement. Now, as a lieutenant, I still have those same goals for my people and for the sergeants that work with me. But my goal is to teach them my job so they understand it and so that they can, when they're ready or when they want to, elevate their promotion to the next level. Number 14. This may be actually the most important one. And maybe I should put this one at the top because it's the one that affects other people the most, perhaps. Just because you were good at the job you had doesn't mean you'll be good at this one. I'll repeat that. Just because you were good at the job you had doesn't mean you'll be good at this one. What do I mean? Well, again, leadership is a different set of skills than being a line level officer. Supervision is a different set of skills than being a line level officer. Can you be a leader and a line level officer at the same time? Absolutely. Can you be a supervisor and a line level officer at the same time? No. As you move up, leader and supervisor become more and more synonymous, at least organizationally. I still argue that they're different. But what I mean in this is you have to take on learning about the job you have now because the skill set is much different. And this is why it's the most important one. This is where we end up with micromanaging sergeants and micromanaging lieutenants. When you get promoted, it's largely based on the fact that you were good at the job you had. I know people are going to scoff at that who are listening, who are saying, no, they're getting the job because of connections or some special education or the chief likes them, whatever it is. But in reality, the vast majority of the time, when you got promoted or you're getting promoted, there was at least a belief, may not be true, but at least but there was an impression that you were good at the job you had. And I know that some of our stuff is screwed up, like written tests don't show how good you were at the job you had. But that's or oral panels don't necessarily show how good you were at the job you had. But those are really the only things we've got to judge people on. So the assumption in those testing processes is that when you score high, you were good at the job you had. But we end up with micromanagers because people enter a role, a new role that they're not confident in. They don't know their responsibilities. They don't know their obligations. They don't have the skill set yet to step into that. And what they do is they revert back to what they were good at, which was like being the street cop, being the line level officer. And especially at the sergeant level, I see this all the time. And I hear about it all the time. A new sergeant promotes and they're not quite sure how to be a new sergeant, but they know how to be a good street cop. And so they teach their people, but they go back to the behaviors and activities of being a street cop. What you want to do is teach your people how to be a good street cop, how to be a good patrol officer, or how to be a good detective. You don't want to do the job for them. And so oftentimes a new supervisor misunderstands that telling them what to do is much different than teaching them what to do. And that when we tell them what to do, we don't give them options and we end up doing a lot of that work for them rather than teaching them the right way to do things or what their options might be on how to handle calls or events or investigations. So new supervisors will revert to micromanaging the little things on a call or the little things in someone's day-to-day work, often because they don't know the role that they're stepping into. And so they revert. And so you got to be very aware of the role you're coming into, what your responsibilities are, what your obligations are, what your mission is. And you have to do that. The way you do that is by having honest conversations with your new boss, the person above you, and understanding what their objectives are, what their mission is, what their pain points are, what's a challenge for them, and how they want you to operate in their environment. If you can understand those 5 things, then you understand the role that you're in, and you can effectively manage those tasks rather than managing the tasks that are going on for the people a step or 2 below you. All right, the last one of 15 secrets no one tells you about becoming a leader is an ego punch. And it hurts, but it's true. You have to be the first one to acknowledge your mistakes. If you make a mistake, and truth is, you're going to make them. You're going to make mistakes as a leader, as a new corporal, as a new sergeant, as an FTO, as a new lieutenant, as a new captain. Wherever you are in the organization, you are going to make mistakes. And you have to be okay with that. Whether your boss is okay with that or not is not for you to decide. You can't help that. But you have to be okay with the fact that you're going to make mistakes. Otherwise, you're going to be completely paralyzed by indecision. But the challenge is, and where ego comes in, is we have to be the first to acknowledge our mistakes and recognize them and then own up to them. Raise our hand first before anybody else says anything. Because if we don't, everyone else is going to, everyone else already knows you made a mistake. Everyone else already knows you screwed up, right? If it's anywhere public facing towards the organization, as a sergeant, you made a wrong call, or, as a lieutenant, you did something, you have to be the first one to acknowledge the mistake, because it goes back to the idea that your leadership position is very tenuous. Because when you acknowledge mistakes, you build trust with people. Because guess what? They're going to make mistakes too. And you have to be okay with that. As long as it's an honest mistake and one done out of a lack of knowledge versus malice, we have to be okay with our people making mistakes. There's no person on earth who's perfect. And that includes you. And that includes the people that work with you. And so mistakes are part of life. But when we pretend they don't exist, when we pretend that we did the right thing even though we know we don't, or everyone else knows we don't, we lose trust, we lose our credibility, we lose any sense of authority that we might have with our people. And as that goes on, or and more mistakes happen, or if in an environment where you're untouchable, then you're no longer that leader, you're just a supervisor. So there we are. 15 secrets no one tells you about becoming a leader. Like I said, I dropped some suggested reading in the show notes for this episode. I think there's some good stuff. There's some great stuff actually in there. Some things, some books that you probably haven't heard of, or maybe need to revisit. If you have any questions, shoot me a DM on Instagram at The Squad Room, or join our Facebook group, or more importantly, sign up for our mailing list. where I talk about some of these things more in depth. And you can get some of your tactics, tips, and strategies every Tuesday in our Tactical Tuesday newsletter. And, just shoot me if you have one too. I'm curious if you have your own secret, one I didn't cover today, one secret about becoming a leader no one tells you about. Let me know. Let me know on socials. Let me know on, shoot me an email, garrett@thesquadroom.net. I'd love to hear what your observations are. Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're new to the show, make sure you check through our catalog of episodes because you're going to find some amazing guests and some amazing actionable ideas that you can take into your day. Also, if you like what you heard today, I want to offer you some extra free resources that we give out. It's our Tactical Tuesday newsletter. Every Tuesday, I bring you a few tactics, tips, and strategies to help you succeed in the week ahead. It may be a book I want to share, gear I found useful, an inspiring quote to think about, or anything else I think you'd like. To sign up for the Tactical Tuesdays email list, you can visit thesquadroom.net/Tactical Tuesdays, or just text your email address and your first name to 805-364-2331. That's 805-364-2331. Those text messages actually come straight to me. It's not some big conglomerate where they steal all your information. We won't spam you and we won't sell your information. If you didn't catch the phone number, you can check the show notes for that there. But thank you for being with us today. Please share this episode. Please integrate what you've learned here. Please tag me on social media to let me know what is useful. Tag me with some questions, and let's engage in a conversation. And let's make this a better career and a better environment and a better world for all of us. Until next time, take care of each other and stay safe.